Hey everyone, my name is Haley and this is my EDU 528 final budget report. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So the total budget amount is $100,000 for 15 different sports, and that includes $32,000 for officials that we have to allocate. But it does not include, we don't have to include anything for the coaches' salaries because that comes from a different budget. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how where I started and then where I went to for each individual sport. So, the initial wish list budget was $173,711.57, which is nearly double the amount of budget that we have to work with. So, that's just astronomical. But I had to go through and kind of prioritize for the year what was a priority and what wasn't. And that took a long time. And so I think I had to implement some sort of tier system for the future. So maybe like tier 1 are necessities, being uniforms and equipment to play the games. And then tier 2 would be the needs, which would be maybe new balls, new sticks, bases, mats, cleaners, that kind of thing. And then obviously tier 3 would be the wants at the lower end, like a shoot away or a new soccer goal, expensive travel items, that type of stuff. And so for the purposes of this assignment, I operated under the assumption that it was a uniform year for most of the teams. So with that assumption, being the uniform year, we're going to go ahead and run through each individual sport, and I'm going to kind of show you the wish list budget and then what was actually allocated for each sport. So we'll go ahead and get started with volleyball. Okay, so here you can see the girls volleyball program, and the top Excel cutout is the wish list that they requested, and then the bottom cutout is the revised wish list based on the $68,000 budget, what we had to allocate, and then we obviously had to make cuts accordingly. So we went ahead and removed knee pads from the wish list. This should be an expense that the players purchase on their own. And then we bumped the balls, the new volleyballs, down to 20 instead of 48. And unfortunately, we had to nix the collapsible ball carts. It's just not in the budget right now. And they have some that work, so they'll be fine. And then we also had to go ahead and cut back to a cheaper uniform option. Next up is the boys volleyball program, and here you can see their wish list at the top and then their revised budget. And I forgot to mention on the girls volleyball program that the cost for officials is already allocated into each budget, and that's the bottom line item, and it's not adjusted in the revised in the wish list. So the official cost is calculated for the games and the amount that the refs or umpires cost, and then the amount of home games that we have. So that's already built into the specific program budget. And here for boys volleyball, we went ahead again and cut back on the knee pads because this is an expense that the players can purchase. And then I think that was all we did for them. And their equipment is shared with the women's team, so they can kind of split those large expenses. Next up is the softball program, and this was not a uniform year for softball, so this year they used the budget to ask for additional equipment and new items. So some things that were revised from the wish list is the pitching machine balls. We weren't able to purchase those because they already have some, they just wanted newer ones. And then we went ahead and only bought 2 new bags for second and third base because those ones are really bad and need replaced, and the other 2 can wait until next year, so at least we got half of those purchased. And same with the orange base bag for first base, that can be replaced next year. And then the turf is not necessary because we have a tarp that goes over the field for the rainy season, and that's also why we don't need any more mound clay. So their revised budget is there on the bottom right corner of the second cutout. All right, here is the baseball team's budget wish list and then their actual revised budget. And so here we had to go with a $30 cheaper uniform set and buy them for varsity only, just to stretch the budget. We can only purchase 24 new baseballs instead of 50, one rake instead of two, and they already split those with softball anyways, so they have one, so this will add an additional one. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a new pitching rubber. We're only able to get two new bases because, again, those ones are in bad shape. We're going to use the same base plugs to save money there as well. For the girls basketball program, we had to cut out the Nike custom shoes. None of our teams have custom shoes except for cheerleading, so it's not really a necessary expense, and players can buy their own. And then we went ahead and had to cut the practice jersey set. Again, none of our teams have a specific practice jersey, so that's not a necessary expense for the team. They also didn't need the nicest custom Nike uniforms, so we bumped down to a cheaper option and purchased them for varsity only this year. And then unfortunately we can't get a new shoot away. It's not in the budget, and that's how the cookie crumbles. So our men's and women's team can fundraise and split the cost for that down the road. Next up, we have the boys basketball program, and unfortunately this was one of the programs that we had to make a lot of cuts for. It's a big uniform year, and so if we would have purchased everything on the boys basketball wish list, another team might not have gotten new uniforms, things like that. So the only things we're able to purchase this year for boys basketball is new uniforms and a new slip mat, and then obviously the cost of officials is calculated in there as well, so had to make several cuts here. And then we have the football team. I didn't have any idea that they usually take a third of the budget, so that was interesting to try to maneuver. However, you can see here, it's not a uniform year for them, so went ahead and eliminated the uniforms and the helmets, because the helmets are bought with a new uniform. We could only purchase 10 new footballs instead of 15, and we had to go with a regular, like a cheaper shoulder pad option, and we couldn't do thigh and hip sets, so hopefully we can get those with the new uniform year. And next up is the wrestling program. It is a uniform year for them, and unfortunately their budget just always works out to where if they get new uniforms, then they don't get any new equipment or anything else. So this year is uniforms only, and the headgear we purchased the off year because it's good for 5 years, and we've had the current headgear for 4, so they should be fine for another year. And then next year we'll be able to purchase new headgear along with the cleaning supplies and the new scorebooks. And next up is the lacrosse team, and unfortunately this was another team that was hit pretty hard with their budget wish list and being able to actually purchase things on that. So the revised budget is that second photo here on the slide. We had to cut the mouth guards. Players gonna have to purchase their own for sanitary reasons and for cost reasons. We weren't able to get new sticks this year, unfortunately. And then nothing else for the goalies either. We decided that the players can also purchase their own goggles and gloves, so that'll cut back on costs. And then we had to go ahead and bump down to the cheaper uniform option here as well. Here is the field hockey wish list and then their allocated budget. And again, another program that didn't really get everything that they asked for, unfortunately. We had to nix the cones because they're going to use the cones that the soccer team uses, so we can split those. We're not able to purchase any team bags, and nothing for the goalies, so no new uniform sets for the goalies. Again, we had to go with another cheaper uniform option here and weren't able to purchase any stick bags. And for the girls soccer program, we were able to purchase new uniform tops and shorts, just the cheaper version of those. We weren't able to purchase them a new cone kit, but they're going to be able to split the new cone kit with the boys soccer program. And then we had to nix the warm-up tops. That was just really... They just got new ones 2 years ago, so these ones are in decent shape. They just wanted a new logo. And then here's the boys soccer program's wish list and revised budget. Again, I don't know, our teams must like to have nice uniforms or they aim for the stars, but again, we had to cut back on the uniform expenses. And they also weren't allowed any new warm-up tops. We are going to purchase the mini set of cones in the men's budget, and they'll share those with the women's program. And then there is just no way that we can buy 2 new goals on wheels, so that's just too large of an expense for our budget. That's something that they're going to have to fundraise for as a team or add into the budget next year. So this is the cheerleading wish list, and then you can see their revised allocated budget was pretty well depleted. They're another program that had a lot of cuts, and unfortunately they're not, obviously a revenue generating team, so we had to divvy up the budget accordingly. So here we weren't able to get any separate rain wear, but we purchased weather resistant warm-ups, and they are rain resistant, and they were actually a cheaper option here. They're not going to get any new tumbling mats this year, and we had to pick a cheaper metallic palm option, and as well as a cheaper bag option. This way they're still getting the items that they like, that they approve, but just at a cheaper cost for the program. It's not a uniform year for cheerleading, so we don't need to purchase any undergarments. We purchased those with the uniform package. And last but not least, we have the boys and girls track program. This year we're not able to purchase any new javelins, whether for boys or for girls team, and no new hurdles. So no equipment is made in this purchase in this budget year because it's a uniform year. We're only able to get tops this year. I guess I shouldn't say no equipment. They're getting 2 starting blocks instead of 4. And we're keeping the pole back. We're just getting a cheaper option. And we're actually cutting back on the roster this year. So instead of 50 uniforms, we're only going to need enough for 30 competitors for each team. So that's been allocated appropriately in this budget. And now, drum roll, please. After all of that is said and done, the total revised budget amount came out to $98,554.63. There was $1,400 remaining for officials after allocating all of the official money appropriately, and there was $45.37 remaining in the $68,000 program budget. So came in just under budget, which leaves us a little bit of room in each season to accommodate changes. So this actually took a lot more time than I anticipated and was a lot trickier than I expected. So I definitely learned a lot about how to revise budgets, and that you need to have a plan in place and have proper protocols, such like those tiers that I mentioned in the beginning. So that way everyone has their fair share of spending.